Hello and welcome. My name is DM Bob Yo. You can find me at dmbobyo.com or on social media, username dmbobyo. I'm also on startplaying.games. You can sign up to play games with me, learn how to play D&D, or play in ongoing campaigns, whatever you like. So today we're just going to give sort of a quick, or as quick as we can anyway, overview of the interface for Fantasy Grounds for players. So you can see I've already brought up my character sheet. When you first log into Fantasy Grounds, you'll select your character from the list, and your DM usually will have either imported it or you'll create the character inside Fantasy Grounds. So I'm going to do a few things. First, I'm going to select a portrait. So you see I'm clicking on the portrait. I go into the data bag. Now I've got quite a selection of tokens here. You'll probably just have the default ones unless you've purchase some additionals. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into the fantasy portraits here. And I'm just looking for a male elven type. Doesn't have to exactly match my character for our purposes, but we'll just go ahead and maybe this guy, I think. Maybe the close-up. All right, so I've selected a portrait. Now, you have several tabs across the side, and these, some of them roughly correspond to tabs in your D&D Beyond character sheet, in particular the Actions tab, which we'll look at momentarily. So the first thing I want to look at is you can do all of your ability checks right from the Fantasy Grounds screen. So if your DM says, give me a strength check, you can see for strength you've got a little dice here. There are two ways to roll it. The first one is to click and grab and hold that dice, dropping it into the chat window, and you can see it adds the bonus. Same thing with Constitution or any other ability score. Or a saving throw. Maybe you need to make a wisdom saving throw. Alright, same type of thing from this front page. Ability checks, saving throws. If you need to make something with advantage, you get a little in the bottom left-hand corner here, you got the ADV button. So maybe we're making an intelligence save with advantage. We get a 26. Also on this screen, you will see your armor class. You can also roll initiative. So we grab that dice to begin in combat, and we get an initiative roll. You can also, down here you have your hit dice. So if you are wounded, let's say that Laoshan here has got 8 wounds, so he's taken 8 damage out of 52 hit points. I can then grab a hit dice during a short rest, roll it. I got a 7 total, so I recovered them right there. The other way, if you don't like to click and drag, you can also double click. So I'm going to double click on a dexterity saving throw, or I'm going to double click on a wisdom check. All right, so the next tab I want to look at real quick is the skills tab. Skills tab, same principle. Make an Arcana check, grab the dice, drop it. Maybe I have to make an acrobatics check with disadvantage. Click disadvantage, double click on acrobatics, or drag the dice. Fail miserably. All right, and there's also these little dragons here. They tell you if you have, anyway, the library loaded, it'll tell you what the ability is. All right, so we're going to go ahead and skip all the way down to actions. Now actions, just like your D&D Beyond character sheet, you want to throw a dart, double click that guy. All right, you want to make a longbow sword attack with disadvantage, click disadvantage, roll the 2 dice. Now, this is sort of just operating without, when you're not on a battlefield, on a battle map. But what happens when you are? So let's take a look at that. Let's go ahead and we'll get a battle map up here real quick. The DM will share a battle map with us. Now, I always recommend, you'll see that you can't see anything yet, of course. I always tell players that when a battle map comes up, the best thing to do is click this guy in the upper right hand corner, the arrow that goes up and to the right, so that it puts the map in the background. And then the next thing is that once the DM puts your token onto the table, onto the map like this, you will now have your line of sight. So here's Laushan. And Laushan has found himself surrounded by a bunch of orcs, some orc fanatics, looks like maybe some orc savages down here. All right. Now he's got a little small crate he can hide behind. And I'll show you some other things. You can obviously move through the map, through doorways. Over here is a door basically that you can go through, right? So all those types of things for movement on the map. Now, before we get into combat, sometimes you're going to make, your DM will have you make a skill check that you're better off not knowing for sure what the result is. So you're going to stealth, you're going to be sneaky. So you take the stealth dice, and rather than putting it into the text chat, you drop it into the dice tower down here. And you can see here that you have no idea how well you did. The DM, however, can see that you got a 17 plus 3, so the DM knows that you're pretty sneaky today. All right, next we'll open up the combat tracker. That's in the upper right-hand corner of the Fantasy Grounds software. And you click on that button. All right, and we can see whose turn it is in combat. Now, we're going to go ahead and make it Laushan's turn, just because. So after everyone's rolled initiative, we can see that Laushan is actually up here, and it happens to be his turn. Everybody else has done their thing. All right, so when I'm ready to attack or cast a spell, I can bring up my character sheet, go to Actions, and if I want, let's say, to attack this orc over here with my longsword, I can move up to him, and then I can take the dice from my longsword attack, and I drop it on him. And it says I got a 14. Now, whether it was a hit or not doesn't show up because my DM has that hidden. My DM will say, okay, it's a hit, which it was indeed. Then I can take the damage, and I can do the same thing. I can drop that right on the Orc Fanatic. And it says damage to Orc Fanatic. Same principle works if I want to cast a spell. Let's say I want to cast, well, of course, this character doesn't have a ton of offensive spells, but he does have Ray of Frost. So let's say I want to cast Ray of Frost. I grab the cast button, and I'm going to cast it on this guy down here. I just drop it on him, and it rolls. I got a 28. The DM is going to say, hey, you got a critical hit. So then I'm going to take the damage, the 1d8 cold, and I'm going to drop it on that guy. And Fantasy Grounds knows that it was a crit, so it rolls the appropriate number of dice. Now, there's another way you can do it instead of dragging and dropping, if you'd rather click. So let's say, again, Laushan, if I select my token, he wants to attack the Orc Fanatic with his longsword again. I can hold down the Control key on the keyboard and click the Orc Fanatic. And if I look on my combat tracker, I'll see Laushan Galanadel targets Orc Fanatic.